What's going on, guys? Dan from SSG bringing you another EDISON format deck profile. This time I'm profiling my machine midrange deck. It's a pretty sweet midrange deck that I've been working on for a while now. I think the signs of a good midrange deck are decks that can provide card advantage, a fast clock that can actually kill the opponent, as well as some favorable interaction in the format. And I think this deck kind of checks off all the boxes, so let's get right into it. We have the 2 copies of each of the gadgets here. I like all 6 as we just have a little card advantage engine that can sometimes pack a punch when combined with other cards, but I think you just want a turn 1 plus 1 every single time in this format. I think it's just very powerful to have a consistent engine that can keep gaining cards when you can, and with only 6 in the deck, they don't really clog too much, so I do like this little engine here. Then we have more plus 1s. We have the 3 copies of gearframe, as well as 2 copies of Fortress here. I'm electing only to run 2 copies of Fortress because we're not running that many big level 8-star machine monsters. This is really going to be when we're trying to actually kill our opponent once we sort of have control of the game and we're beating our opponent down. But the 3 copies of Gearframe is really important just for getting out onto the board early while gaining card advantage, and just a very concise small package that can just be versatile and really start to push with the Fortress whenever we feel the need to. We are also running Ancient Gears, so I have the full 3 playset of Ancient Gear Beast. In my opinion, this is the best Ancient Gear monster as it just is so versatile in the format. It kills very powerful things. It destroys Rykos without their effects activating, just destroys Sangan, Dandelions, just kind of just gets rid of all the nonsense and just allows you to progress at your game plan just beating down. And a lot of times we're just going to normal summon this out with Geartown in play as a 2000 stick, and sometimes it even gets even bigger than that. So very strong card. I think it's a perfect kind of mid-range card, right? It's 2000. It has a very powerful effect. It can be hard to interact with. It's exactly what we want in a mid-range deck. So I have the full 3 copies of Ancient Gear Beast. We then have 2 copies of Gadlitron Dragon. Of course, we're running Geartown, so we're going to go and search out the 3000 stick whenever we can. Also, you can get rid of it in your hand to discard for Fortress coming back, which is also very powerful, presenting multiple big attack point monsters on turns after turn. Very, very powerful, but we have the 2 Gadlitron Dragons to just go fetch our deck and be powerful, be big beat sticks. We then have 1 copy of Ancient Gear Engineer. Shout out to one of my viewers for giving me this suggestion in the comments. I think the card is really interesting. It can't be targeted by trap cards. It just negates and destroys whatever targets it. But as well as when it attacks, it gets to pop a monster, pop a Backrow after the end of the damage step. So it's 1500. It's not the biggest one, right? But you can normal summon it and just kind of like threaten control decks by just having this card in your deck. You can also get it out of your deck with Geartown in those control matchups. So I think the card's just very good. It's kind of like a utility card. I like it as a one-of, and it's a mid-range card, right? It provides value. It's not like the biggest threat, but like in certain matchups, you want access to something like this, and I kind of just been liking it a lot. It's really powerful as a one-of. On to spells, we have the full 3 copies of Geartown. Of course, this is going to be our way to just explode damage onto the board and also just make sure we're normal summoning those Ancient Gear Beasts out of our hand very quickly and consistently. And sort of wrapping up the field spell package, I have 1 copy of the Mausoleum here, Mausoleum of the Emperor. Really strong card, just giving you more ways to normal summon out your monsters, and getting rid of like normal summon Fortress out of your hand is really good. Getting summoning Gadlitron Dragon is really good. So just being able to present multiple threats like turn after turn is just really strong, and that's exactly what you want any mid-range deck to do. You just want to be attacking and beating down while using trap cards and other forms of interaction to kill your opponent. And this is exactly what we want to be doing. And then of course I have the 2 copies of Terraforming to go search these out, just to kind of get the consistency of popping your Geartown exactly when you want to. So I think these 6 just kind of do a great job of that. And yeah, I really like the 1 Mausoleum. I would go up to 2, but I think you'll see I have 1 in the sideboard, but I think going up to 2 in the main is a little bit inconsistent. So I do like this ratio here for the main deck for now. We move on. We have 3 copies of Solidarity. I've been liking this card in this deck a lot because I think it gives this sort of mid-range deck a little bit of reach, right? It just gives you that initial extra damage that can kind of just add up over time. And if you hit your opponent with like 2 monsters that have solidarity, that's like an extra 1600 damage, right? It's like it's 800 damage per attack that you would not have had before, and I think that just adds up very quickly in a deck that has so many big beaters, right? And this card just makes all your cards like so much more effective. It makes all your gadgets a minimum of 2000. Think about a 2000 attack point monster that's replacing itself on normal summon. Very, very powerful. It makes your gearframe 2600, searching a fortress, like such a powerful card in combination with the solidarity. So I'm running all 3 copies, as I think like it just helps to actually kill your opponent. A lot of times I can hold on to it until we have control of the game, and like we have 2 monsters in play, drop the solidarity, attack over their big things. Like really powerful at like getting over the things that they feel they're safe and established with, but also just like once you have the board, just applying maximum pressure to make sure they don't get to come back in the game, as sometimes mid-range decks kind of fault, right, when the bigger, like more explosive decks can go over the top of you in the later stages of the game. This card just kind of makes sure that you don't get like they don't get to go over you. You just get to kill them, end the game, get the extra 2400 damage in that you need to actually close out the game, and it's really powerful. Very good card. We have 2 copies of Smashing Ground. I like this card in mid-range decks, just kind of 1-for-1 with our opponent when we have a bunch of +1 cards in our deck. Just want to be interacting in ways like this. We have some Backrow removal here. We have the Heavy Storm as well as the MST, just powerful removals. Then we on to 1 copy of limited removal. Of course, it's limited to 1, and for a reason. This card is extremely powerful, and even in like a more slower like controlling deck, we want access to this. It's just a complete blowout. Card's insane. You just hit them with 1 attack normally, and then you're holding the like limited removal, and they're just dead. You know, very easy to actually kill them, especially with Geartown in your deck. Just really powerful. You want to have access to this, as it can just steal games out of nowhere. Onto the trap cards, our interaction here. We have the full 3 copies of Deep Prison. Just really strong, just protects your smaller monsters. Make sure you keep getting value with the gadgets and beating down. Really strong there. We have 2 copies of the Bottomless Trapple, of course, just standard removal. We want to get rid of those annoying threats that are going to stick around, and just get rid of them while you can when they're being summoned. We have 1 copy of Mirror Force here. Another removal, as well as Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute, really good in this deck, as the gadgets replace themselves. Everything kind of replaces themselves. You don't really care about giving up the board, as you can just retake it on the following turn. We have the 1 copy of Solemn Judgment, of course, kind of pairing that with the 1 copy of Dark Bribe. I've been liking Dark Bribe in these style of decks where like it acts as a Starlight Road, where you can protect against things like Heavy Storm, but it's also just like allows you to push with those gear towns and make those mausoleum plays that allow you to just kind of like take over and go for your main pushes, you know? So I think it's sort of like a middle ground here, because like sometimes you do want some interaction for your opponent's back row to actually like push through those random plays sometimes, you know, because you can put out a lot of damage in this deck, but most of the time you're just going to be controlling. And I think this card is just more of like a flexible thing where you can interact with your opponent trying to do something broken, like blow up all your back rows, or when you finally have the like built up a turn where you want to go for a game push, then you have the Dark Bribe to protect that. So I do like these 2 in combination with one another. I think they do a lot of work on both ends of the play. We then have the, of course, SSG staple. Wouldn't be a profile without it. The 1 copy of Trap Dustshoot. Just draw this card in turn 1, and you're better than your opponent. You outskill them. You are a much better duelist, and they have nothing they can say to you if you open with this card. Very powerful. Onto the extra deck. I actually didn't make a full extra deck up because we just never summon anything. We don't have any tuners, anything like that. So we just want to make sure that we have access to the 2 chimeratechs and what number of stardust you play for the Starlight Road. I'm sure there's reasons to play like other things, but I think overall we just want to have access to these, and then the rest of it is up to you guys. Sideboard, 2 copies of the Cyber Dragon. You've got to be a little bit careful with these because you can't leave these floating in play alongside your gadgets and other cards. You got to make sure you contact them away once you're done attacking. But overall, you're going to use this card to make a game push. You're going to use this card as a standalone game piece, just dropping it into play to pressure your opponent's monsters and back rows. And let them interact with it. You know, you don't have to then commit a gadget or something like that after. Card's just great. It does so many different things in this deck. And the next one we have is another copy of the Engineer. I just like this card in control matchups. Like, it's very, very powerful. And in combination with Solidarity, very, very strong. Going up to 2300 and being able to pop Backrows, not targeted by Backrows. Card's just good. Like, I like this card a lot, and I think having two, access to two out of the sideboard is very good. We have the 2 copies of Lightning Vortex. We want to be able to blow away dragon boards, and I think card's just kind of going down in popularity, but I think overall, like, it's just strong. You have +1s with the Fortress getting to hand with Gearframe. You have the gadget you can discard, so like, essentially you can just discard. Basically, the discard is free sometimes, so I think it's worth playing the 2 Lightning Vortex. Killing 2 monsters with this is going to be good in most matchups. We have 1 Smashing Ground, just additional removal for random, like, slow decks to just want to present 1 threat on each turn. Just Smashing Ground, have 3 copies in those matchups, really strong. I then elect to play 1 copy of Mausoleum in the side. I like this card going second, because I think that it can be a little bit difficult to retake the board at times without having a piece of removal like a Smashing Ground. I think the trap cards can be a little bit slow, like Dimensional Prison. I like to just, like, activate this, summon a bigger monster than the thing they have in play, and force them to answer it, and then it just kind of gets the train rolling with your, like, threat after threat. And just having an additional copy of this is more consistent for setting up the geartown plays on early turns of the game. So I like it for going second. I think it's, like, an interesting take on just trying to present those threats over and over, and being able to present a threat bigger than the one they have in play on turn 1 and turn 2 is just very, very strong. And being able to take board and then set your back rows behind it is really powerful. So I like to play the second copy of Mausoleum for those reasons. We have 2 copies of Dust Tornado here, just more back row removal, very solid. We have 2 copies of the Pulling the Rug. Kaias can be pretty good against this deck. I think a lot of our cards replace themselves, but if they get us with a good Kaias onto a Gadlitron Dragon, it could be pretty detrimental. So I do like the 2 Pulling the Rugs. I'm electing to go with 2 Trap Holes. There's just so many Blackwings running around, man, and we need to have answers for them. So I think Trap Hole is just kind of like my go-to card against Blackwings, as it just denies the value of Black Whirlwind, as well as just keeps their board clear. You kind of just want to go minimal back row, don't want to get blown out by a card like Icarus Attack. Just set a Trap Hole, make sure they don't have a board presence, and start trying to gadget them out of the game, or just try to present a fast clock and kind of clock them with your Ancient Gear monsters. So I think the 2 Trap Holes kind of do some work. Then running 1 copy of Starlight Road just to protect our back rows, essentially. We want this against Judgment Dragon, we want this against Heavy Storm, we want this against the Geyserus, of course. And then I'm also electing to play a copy of Oppression. This is kind of one I've been testing recently. I think you could go up to 2. I think you could cut it out entirely. I like 1 just as a way to just set up a board and then set Oppression behind it. I think it's a pretty good thing. I don't really like summoning Gadget and then trying to, like, Oppression value game them out, because this deck isn't, like, the best at doing that. However, I do think just being able to set, like, Gadlitron plus Ancient Gear Beast set Oppression is just, like, game winning. So I do like the 1 copy for that type of reason. So that is about it, guys. Let me know what you guys thought about the deck in the comment section below. I think it's a pretty sweet deck. I think people don't try to build these, like, dedicated mid-range type decks, but I think, like, the addition of Solidarity just makes it so that we can actually kill our opponent once we do assume control of the game. And Ancient Gear Beast, the card's just so powerful. I think the card is very, very strong, as it does so many different things. So yeah, just kind of a mid-range mashup deck that is all machines and takes advantage of powerful cards like Solidarity. So that is about it, guys. So without further ado, this is Dan V from SSG signing out.